Welcome to What's That Pen, where we find you your next perfect pen. My name is Amanda Arneill, and today we are looking at the Crayola Signature Brush and Detail Dual Tip Markers. Now, these pens, it says that there are 32 vibrant colors, which is a little bit misleading because while there are 32 colors, there are only 16 pens, where the brush tip is one color and then the fine tip is a different color. That can be a plus and a minus depending on how you look at it. If you want a color that will complement the brush tip, so it's slightly different, then it's a plus. If you are looking for a color that matches the brush tip in order to be able to do some fine line work, then it's not the perfect situation, but 16 pens isn't too bad. The other reason that this is actually a pretty good buy, and maybe especially if you're starting out, a good way for you to not waste too much money, is that this entire pack of 16 pens is less than $10 on Amazon currently. So that ends up being about 60 cents a pen, which you can't really beat. Let's dive into the pack and see exactly how these pens perform and how they may or may not be perfect for you. Inside the box, when you open it up, and it is quite a beautiful box, it's a nice metal box, which will be great for storing these if you want to keep them in here in the future. I personally don't keep most of my pens inside their beautiful case, but it can make it easy for just shoving them in your bag and taking them around when they do have a nice case like this. It's also a good way to make sure that you're storing them horizontally and flat to ensure that the ink doesn't run out and stays in the tips of your pen. Now inside there are 2 layers of pens showing all of the different colors. One of the reasons I really like this set is because just looking at the tips of the colors, some of them look a little bit more unique than the colors that you get in other sets, where it's the typical red, orange, yellow, green, blue with little variation on what shade of red, orange, yellow, green, or blue it actually ends up being. Since these are Crayola markers, do keep in mind that they do have a bit in common with the typical Crayola markers that kids might use. They are not archival quality, which means that the color is not light fast. Over time it will dull, especially if it's in sunshine or in bright light, and it's also not waterproof. So if you get a drop of water in there, it will smudge. Just like other Crayola pens though, these ones are non-toxic and washable out of most fabrics. So if your pen happens to hit you on your shirt, you're probably okay. For 60 cents a pen, can you really go wrong? Each pen, when you first pick it up, you usually go through and do your mountains. Thin upstrokes, thick downstrokes. These Crayola pens are a little bit surprising because the tip looks very large, but the strokes themselves actually are not all that large. And you can have pretty good control because while the tip is large, it's not actually very flexible, so you do get a little bit of difference in your brush, but not all that much. If you're heavy-handed, this will be helpful for you because it will make it much easier for you to control your pen. Now this is a brush tip, which means that it has that flexibility to it. And with brush tips, you always want to make sure that you are using them on very smooth paper. And I've linked to some good papers for your pens down below. If you're using rough paper, the tip is going to start to get frayed and you're not going to have those nice crisp lines for very long. The amount of thick and thin that you can get with a pen is always very important because it's that contrast that makes your lettering look absolutely amazing. It's also the control that you have over your thick and your thin. It's very easy with these pens to get a consistent thick line, and it's also quite easy to get a consistent thin line. And that's very important in being able to control the way that your pressure changes on your pen. For your nib rebound, to test that out, do tight up and down strokes. It doesn't matter what these look like. But then when you're done, you want to see what the tip of the pen looks like. So this one still has a slight curve up. That means that I would say that this has acceptable rebound. You would have to turn your pen pretty often as you're using it in order to ensure that it doesn't get stuck in that one position. As a pen gets stuck, stuck in that one position, then it just means that your transitions aren't going to be as crisp. So make sure that you're turning your pen pretty often. This has an average nib rebound. For writing size, because it's actually not as large as you would expect looking at the tip, this one has about a medium, maybe even something you'd consider a small writing size, where you can fit a fair number of words on one page. Now for juiciness, that's a measure of how much ink actually gets put onto the page. When you first write with these pens, it looks like there is a lot of color going down. It looks like it's very juicy, but as it dries out, the color fades a little bit and doesn't seem quite as vibrant. Though, another thing to test is how easily it smears. This one doesn't smear, which means it's not overly juicy. I would say it's about a dry to a regular juicy level. These pens are going to be a good choice for you if you're a lefty or if you just don't have the patience for something to dry really, really quickly. Now, ease of transition. Often you'll do this sort of line when you're testing out a pen and you think this one's going to be really easy for me to use, but you also want to test your circular motion. So both directions, how easy it is to go from a thin upstroke to a thick downstroke and then back up, and have those thin upstrokes be the same size both times. Thin upstroke, thick downstroke, and thin upstroke. Now these ones, I would say, while my hand was a little bit shaky, the ability to transition from heavy pressure to light pressure was fantastic. It was easy to do. So on a scale of yay, okay, nay, or stay away, these would definitely be a yay. Overall, we have a pen that is cheap, only about 60 cents per pen. We have a pen that has good rebound, is easy with your transitions, and allows for quick drying, ease of access, especially if you are left-handed. One of the cons about this pen might be that the colors are not quite as vibrant as we might like. For instance, this pink could have a little bit more punch to it, but you can always do a second layer on top of that. And as a bonus, you have your complementary fine liner color on the other side, which makes it easy for you to choose a complementary color for each brush pen that you've got. I would say that makes this Crayola Signature Brush and Detail Dual Tip Pen Set one that I would suggest you add to your library next time you are looking for a new set of pens. You can download the pen checklist for the Crayola Signature Brush down below. You can also download a blank pen checklist so that you can test out the pens in your own collection and have a written record of which ones are your favorites and which ones maybe you can donate to some kids group somewhere. If you have a pen that you would like me to review so that we are wasting my money and not yours on potential duds, put the name of that pen down in the comments below so that I can purchase those ones and we can do a review together to see if those would be a perfect pen for you or not. See you next time on What's That Pen?